Evening and welcome to this special City Council meeting for August 19th, 2020. I'll now call this meeting to order with a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer. Cruz. Okay, they don't have their mics on, but
Here I am.
Harding,
Here.
Dara,
There is, I can see him present. He's working on his phone connection now.
I see him. Okay. Shires
Here.
and Dunn.
Here.
All members are present, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just as we said in past meetings, this meeting is being held electronically as a measure of precaution against the spread of COVID-19 in accordance with the Iowa Public Information Board's requirements. So that said, our first or our only order of business tonight is item 1, a resolution adopting a face mask mandate for the city of Cedar Falls. Is there a motion to approve this mandate, this resolution?
I make a motion.
Okay, so I see a motion and a second. And so now we will open it up for council discussion and we'll have an opportunity for public comment as well. I'll also note too that I've invited Dr. Nafisa Egbwoni to answer questions. She said she would be a little bit delayed, but I'm looking for her and I'll let you know when she has arrived if you have questions for her. So to start off, just on a staff level, I would be happy to read off the portion of the resolution, the proposed resolution. I think it'd be important to do that since the public hasn't had a chance to view what we'd be saying or what's up for approval. But first, I'll turn it over to Mr. Rogers. Before I read the proclamation, Mr. Rogers, do you have anything that you'd like to preface this with?
The resolution that's in front of council is very close to the resolution passed by the city of Waterloo recently. And this was only reviewed in terms of proper citation and if it was inclusive of all the appropriate statements of justification. It was not reviewed particularly for policy content at all. And so that would be up to council on those policy matters, the extent of how it would be enforced and the exceptions and so forth. Any other objects, questions, concerns, I can address those as we go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers. So at this point, I think it would be worth reading the therefore section so that council and the public understands what is under consideration for tonight. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here. And so there's quite a bit of whereases, and these basically go into the justifications or the reasons for going into the therefores. But I do want to focus on the therefores here, where it says, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Cedar Falls, Iowa, as follows. Every person in the City of Cedar Falls must wear a face covering when in public, as opposed to one's place of residence, when one cannot stay 6 feet apart from others. Inside any indoor public settings, including but not limited to grocery stores, pharmacies, hardware stores, retail stores, and other public settings that are not one's place of residence. And when among people who do not live in the same household. City buildings, which is currently the practice already. Outside, if maintaining a distance of 6 feet apart is not possible. And then also while using public transportation or private car services, including taxis, rideshare, or carpooling. And then it says for section 2, no business that is open to the public may provide service to a customer or allow a customer to enter its premises unless the customer is wearing a face mask as required by this resolution. Then businesses that are open to the public must post signs at entrances instructing customers of their obligations to wear a face mask covering while inside. Then section 3 says, Those who are exempt from wearing a face covering are persons younger than 2 years of age due to the risk of suffocation. B, anyone who has trouble breathing on oxygen therapy or ventilator. C, anyone who is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to remove their face covering without assistance. D, anyone who has been told that by a medical, legal, or behavioral health professional not to wear face coverings. And E, anyone actively engaged in a public safety role, including but not limited to law enforcement, firefighters, or emergency medical personnel. And then section 4 says, places and times where persons are exempt from wearing a face covering are A, while traveling in a personal vehicle alone or with only household members. B, while a person is alone or only with household members. C, while exercising at moderate or high intensity, including swimming, jogging, and biking. D, while seated at a food establishment in the process of eating or drinking. And E, or also while obtaining a service that would require temporary removal of the person's face covering. Then finally F, when federal or state law prohibits wearing a face covering or requires the removal of face covering. So then it says for section 5, if a face covering is chosen, appropriate use of a face cloth covering includes a snug fit but comfortable around the side of the face, completely covers the nose and mouth, is secured with ties or ear loops, includes multiple layers of fabric, allows for breathing without restriction, and can be laundered and machine dried without damage or change in shape. So section 6 says, this resolution shall be in effect for 6 weeks from the date it is signed by the mayor. Prior to the expiration, the City Council of the City of Cedar Falls may extend the mandate by adopting a new resolution. Then section 7, if any section, provision, or part of this resolution is judged invalid or unconstitutional, such adjudication shall not affect the validity of the resolution as a whole, or any section, provision, or part of the resolution not adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. So with that, I will open it up to council for questions from staff and for initial discussion.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you saying that is pretty much Waterloo's mandate with Cedar Falls put in there? That's basically the same.
It's, yes, fundamentally it's the same. The one change, Mr. Rogers, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand substantive change was a provision regarding that it's meant to be compliance rather than enforcement. And could you speak to that of why that was removed?
It was, that wasn't the primary problem with that clause. The primary problem was it spoke to enforcement of this within the discretion of the mayor. And given the potential issues with enforcement, I didn't think that was appropriate to include. And furthermore, in a resolution like that, you'd want to be crystal clear about what the enforcement mechanism would be.
So other early questions from staff, or excuse me, from council. Yes, Councilmember DeBeer, go ahead.
Well, Kevin, this is a resolution, not an ordinance. So therefore, there is no enforcement that is possible since it's not a law. Is that correct?
Enforcement's definitely a problem. If you're talking about if someone were to violate this resolution, what would happen? What would be the enforcement mechanism? In a resolution, it's very difficult to come up with one because, as you stated, state law provides that a city may deem a violation of its ordinances to be a municipal infraction. This would not be an ordinance, it would be a resolution. So enforcement's problematic.
Okay, and the second question I had as a follow-up to that was, I read that local officials need governor's approval for any local resolution that contradicts state law. Is that true?
I wouldn't state it exactly like that. I would state that local action must be consistent with state law or action. In other words, not irreconcilable with state action.
And I'll speak to that as well. There really are two components to this that Councilmember DeBeer is alluding to. There's the can we do a mask mandate, and then should we do a mask mandate? And from my reading of home rule law and from seeking to understand what the city's authorities are, I've held from the beginning of the pandemic that the cities have a right to carry out actions which are above or more restrictive than what the state is requiring, but we can't, by law, countermand or do something less than what the state law, or in this case, the emergency proclamation requires. So just to read, it's the basic home rule amendment under the 25th Amendment of the state constitution. It says, municipal corporations are granted home rule power and authority not inconsistent with the laws of the General Assembly to determine their local affairs and government. And then under that, it says the rule of or proposition of law that a municipal corporation possesses and can only exercise those powers granted in express words is not a part of this law of this state. It's kind of a convoluted way of saying that cities aren't limited to actions only that the state lets us do. So in this case, I'm reading this as, from going through the latest governor's proclamation from July, it doesn't specifically prohibit the cities from creating a mask mandate. And being as that's the case, we're, as a city, if the council decides to move forward with this, it is completely consistent with the home rule amendment that we are allowed to create that additional restriction. And it's the interpretation that other cities have held to also as they've created their mandate. And so those were Muscatine, Dubuque, Iowa City, Mount Vernon, Waterloo, Ames, and Johnson County. So I'm certainly not going to speak to whether we should have the mandate or not have the mandate, but as the mayor and in keeping with my oath to support the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Iowa, I strongly hold, and I have always held, that we have this right to make this decision for the health of our citizens. So I'll just leave it at that.
Did you get a chance, Mayor, to confirm that with the League of Cities by any chance? Or because I know that's fine. I just thought perhaps you had talked with them because that home rule is a huge issue for all cities.
And I very much do not want to abdicate our ability to govern our own affairs under home rule. Now, I will state too, if Governor Reynolds puts in the next emergency proclamation that cities do not have the right to carry out or to enact local mandates, then this question goes off the table. And if council decided that it wanted to do a mandate and something like that was in effect, I would also be required by my oath to veto that. What the state or what the city, the council had decided, because it wouldn't be consistent with the state law and the emergency proclamation. But in this case, I've not found that this action would violate the state constitution or state laws.
Could you, Mayor, or a staff person, or Chief Birdie or somebody talk a little bit about all the criteria that is in that particular mandate? I'm assuming we're doing some of those things already. Is that fair to say? I mean, that a lot of that has already been, that local businesses have taken it upon themselves to do a lot of that stuff. Do we have any current data about how we're doing with those things? Or do we have examples of some of those criteria that are already being implemented? Does that make sense?
Are you waiting for me? Or
I was asking, I just didn't know if someone might have some, we've been implementing some, or businesses have been implementing some things. I don't know that other than what the city itself has done for city staff, has there been any other organized effort to work with businesses?
well, I would just say, I mean, obviously there's businesses in town where masks are required. You can think of quite a few of them, and the city, city staff were wearing them, but that's all I can think of.
Okay.
I think some of the businesses in town require them. You're not allowed to enter without them. They will refuse you service if you're not wearing them. There's other businesses that are highly encouraging them, providing them at the entrance, but you still are allowed to go inside if you choose not to. And then there's some that really have no requirements at all. So it's really a wide variety, but there are several out there that are requiring them.
And I think as well, depending on what type of industry you're in, like bars and restaurants, I was talking with an owner today who Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco, I think, is monitoring. They're going in and doing compliance checks with bars, and I don't know about restaurants. I would assume the same, but there's a fair amount of criteria that they're having to meet currently, aside from masks. So I think there are things happening out there, but
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that too. Yeah, there's a lot of businesses out there that, if you probably noticed, have markings on the floor, so you're 6 feet apart as you wait in line, and that type of thing too. So a lot of the businesses are, in my opinion, being very responsible.
Okay, and I'm back into gallery mode, so I can see your hands as you raise them. I apologize for that before. So, Councilmember Cruz, go ahead. And I've got you muted right now. So you just need to unmute there.
Thank you. Asking this of both Mr. Rogers and Mayor Green, how has this resolution squared with the opinion of the Iowa Attorney General? Because I think he came out and supported the resolution and has gone so far to say that we as a community can't do this, but I don't have the language in front of me, so I was curious if that's been vetted through him.
Well, my understanding from the Attorney General is that the Attorney General has said that cities do not have the authority under home rule to make these changes. He's given an opinion on it. Mr. Rogers, is there anything more definitive? Nothing has gone before the courts.
Right. There hasn't been, I think it's a little bit too much to say that the informal opinions issued by the Assistant Attorney General came out and said that it would be improper. That's the way certainly it's been interpreted. That's the way Governor Reynolds has interpreted it. And I'll say this, it is not clear at all in the present state of affairs where a court would come down on this. I think you'll see, obviously there are cities that have adopted similar measures and they obviously feel it's lawful to do so. Others have not. I think you're going to find disagreement among city attorneys. I think you're going to find disagreement among county attorneys, whether or not cities and counties are able to act in this area. So it's unclear, and as was stated, I'm not aware of any court decisions, nor am I aware of any action to challenge any cities or counties who have acted already. So it's really unclear at this time.
Follow-up?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz, go ahead.
I did have a chance to talk to the governor's office today, and I was informed that the state has taken the position that they will not defend or help defend a city if they put in an ordinance like this and there's a lawsuit against the city. So I think that's a critical component. I don't know if that statement is circulated out yet, but I understand that there was a very recent meeting, and if we do this, we're on our own. So,
well, just from reading of the law, I'd be very happy to go before the Iowa Supreme Court on this.
Just saying.
Now, just yes, Councilmember Harding, go ahead.
All right. I understand that there's a ton of controversy here. There's sides, and it's a tough issue. I myself personally, try to do my best and wear a mask everywhere I go. I don't think that the debate about wearing a mask or the efficacy of it is what we're here for. I think with the resolution, my question goes to this: if there's no way to enforce this resolution, and we're just putting the word out there, I worry that at the end of the day, which is a saying that I've been told I say a lot, what's the point? What are we really achieving here other than saying that we want people to wear masks? There's no enforcement. So I wonder what the bigger picture is here. What are we really doing?
And this might be a good time for me to introduce Dr. Egbuoni, who is the county public health director. And Dr. Agboloni, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I wanted to give a chance to provide, or for you to provide the county's perspective on this, and particularly when it comes to the question that Councilmember Harding had regarding to enforcement and the discussions that occurred in Waterloo as well. So I will unmute you here and go ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And before I begin, I just want people to know I have my 2-year-old right next to me. So she's watching you all. If you hear sounds, I'm trying to do my best. Yeah. So back to the question about enforcement. I think one of the things that we have to take into account is that it's more about taking an approach of education and compliance. The Board of Health is looking at passing potentially a health regulation for face masks. But I'm asking the support of the two largest cities here in Waterloo and Cedar Falls, because when we look at the data, we see that people in Black Hawk County are really navigating the two largest cities. And so we need to do our best to control for the spread, and having that universal mask message is going to be key. And so enforcement would look something like, this is the best example I can provide. Police or law enforcement don't go out ticketing people for jaywalking. But you know that when you see an officer and you're doing it, at some point you're just like, okay, I shouldn't be doing this, you know? So if there's large gatherings, people are not socially distancing, I'm not expecting law enforcement to go out and ticketing, but how about educating and telling people that they do need to physically distance, they do need to wear their mask, because this is critical. So I think we're seeing that at the state level, we're asking for local control, especially in towns where there's universities. Both President Nook and President Holcomb are very much in support, because they have very transient populations that come and go among the different cities in Iowa. So I think for us, it's about really demonstrating the importance of face masks. And you're very right. You have corporations and businesses that are requiring the face mask, socially distancing. But I think that they also need that support from us in terms of dealing with people that might be even resistant to it. We are going to run into a situation here whereby if, for example, UNI gets an outbreak, that's going to have an economic impact. Eventually, the schools are going to have to shut down, the university, and that's loss of revenue for places like Hy-Vee, for downtown Cedar Falls. And so really, when you look at the data in terms of even the economic prosperity and being able to remain sustainable, it's correlated with a universal face mask message. And so that's really been my ask these past few weeks, and just seeing what are some of the questions that people have in regards to face masks. But really the enforcement issue has to do with education and compliance. DIA is working with us in terms of the compliance of bars and restaurants for social distancing. But we have been asking them and saying to the state, well, if you're asking us to monitor the social distancing of bars and restaurants, why are you not also have a universal mask mandate here for the state? Because that's a lot of work. It's mixed messages. But we are asking for local control. That's been difficult. But for my ask to you all is, please consider Black Hawk County is a hot spot. It's been months. It's really, we've been tackling this, and over the past couple of months, the data is showing that it's predominantly in college age students. And so, and I'm seeing community spread in both the zip codes. And so it's not just one particular, where originally the outbreak started in Waterloo, but it's community spread is happening. Sorry, yeah.
Thank you. And you mentioned that President Nook had provided a letter to you, correct?
Yes.
And that letter was in support of the mandate?
Yes, he is very much in support of the mandate. We've been talking about what potentially could be the consequences if UNI shuts down. Mm-hmm. And that is a real economic issue to consider. And so we're doing our best to recruit for contact tracing, UNI as well. But I just am concerned because, you think about even in situations whereby maybe there's campus parties going on and we're not aware, but if someone calls as a nuisance issue, that's also an opportunity to say, no, everybody needs to disperse. There's, you have to wear a mask when you're in gathering. So we're trying to look at the different scenarios that can happen and potentially lead to outbreaks.
Okay, thank you. And unless council objects, I'd like to now turn it over to have public comment, and then we can come back and have the council discussion for it. I certainly want to provide the public the opportunity to speak on this. So I typically in this, I would want to have, if it was in person, we would do a pro-con so that we can kind of keep a balance of thoughts. But since I can't identify that in the attendees, I'm just going to take it in alphabetical order.
Mayor,
so, yes.
Hey, can I say something real quick? Sorry.
Sure. Well, go ahead, Councilmember Dunn.
Sorry, I was just waiting for everybody else to have their turn. Okay, so obviously I come from the healthcare side of this pandemic. I have been exposed to this pandemic in the clinic setting, and then during the month of May, some of us were sent to the hospital to work directly with COVID-19 patients. I am wear a mask where I go. I don't wear it outside so much as long as I can socially distance. So for me, my thoughts on this is it's unfortunate that it's got to the point where a city has to make this kind of decision. To me, it would have been ideal if our national or state leaders would have made the decision. But I do agree, I appreciate the doctor's input. I do agree that education is key. One of the the statistics that I found from the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics is if 80% of us would mask up, the pandemic would go away. That doesn't mean the virus would go away, but the numbers would be low enough to not be considered a pandemic. Yeah, I understand. I support our local businesses. I understand the economic impact that lots of small business, especially restaurants and bars, the fear they have of enforcing or having a mask mandate. But I also believe that sometimes people don't realize that there's a whole group of folks that aren't necessarily shaming businesses because don't have a mask policy, but they just naturally don't feel safe. So they're losing out, even though they think they have people coming in just because they don't have the mask mandate. They're also losing out on a whole group of citizens who aren't coming in and patronizing you because you don't require or encourage masking. So I think there's two sides to that story, that some businesses may find that if there was a mandate, they might actually see an increase in certain parts of the population coming in. And so that's it. I just want to put that in.
Thank you. And I do see 4 hands up from the public. And so first I'll go with Penny. So if you can give name and address for the record, please. And then we'll do 5 minutes max for as normal.
Good
Go
evening,
ahead, Penny.
Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Penny Pop, 4805 South Main. I support the mask resolution. and I have written to council expressing my opinion. Now, in addition to those reasons, I'd like to share some further observations on why a mask resolution may benefit our community. Cedar Falls is a thriving rural community, heavily invested and prideful in tourism and small business. We have watched our tourism dollars decline and our small business revenue crumble. As we work towards recovery, the city must uphold their responsibility to address the health and safety of the community as a whole. One of the tools the city can use is home rule. All of us have made adjustments over the last months. It's been a long process for many, and we are on the verge of accepting these new behaviors. By pairing up with Waterloo, we are signaling to all of us and the folks across America that Iowa is open for business. We can work together to keep our neighbors healthy. We care enough to keep visitors safe and healthy too. In turn, this resolution may spur tourism dollars and reinvigorate our businesses. The small gesture of wearing masks for the length of time outlined in the resolution may help Cedar Falls and Waterloo recover. We can't predict the future, but I'm sure I wouldn't miss this opportunity to participate in this short experiment to help my community be healthy and thrive again. And we won't know unless we try. And I do have one quick question. If we do go ahead and pass this resolution tonight, do we have a duty or a plan to help provide masks to those who do not have the resources to get them? Thank you for your time.
Okay. And that's a question that I'll hold for answering until the end of public comment, but I did write that down for addressing by staff. Next person that I have as a public speaker is Travis Biggs. So Mr. Biggs, let me just do some admin here real quick. Okay, Mr. Biggs, go ahead, sir. You have 5 minutes.
All right. I'm Travis Biggs. I live at 1515 Rainbow Drive in Cedar Falls. That's Ward 4. I'd like to start by recognizing that Mayor Green has more political and legal experience than Governor Reynolds and Attorney General Miller, but the opinions of both Governor Reynolds and Attorney General Miller contradict the mayor's viewpoint on this issue. Again, I recognize Mayor Green's legal expertise far exceeds that of our state's top legal authority. However, I believe ignoring Attorney General Miller's advice is unwise. Seeing as this resolution is effectively unenforceable and the legal costs of fighting inevitable litigation could be significant, I see no way that any rational public servant could support this resolution. Dr. Eugenie, and I apologize, I may have said her name wrong, said it best. This is about compliance. I usually wear a mask in public, but if this resolution passes, I will intentionally go maskless at all times and will encourage everyone I know to do the same. I will also only patronize businesses that do not enforce this resolution. I urge you all to vote against this resolution today, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Biggs. Next speaker, I have Sherry Jaramillo, and so you have the floor, Ms. Jaramillo.
Yes, I would just like to say I am a board member for one of the businesses on the parkade, and we have a lot of volunteer workers and elderly clerks, and even as a board member, I hesitate to go downtown because so many people are there without a mask on. I tend to go only to places where masks are required. I feel strongly that this is a step forward to opening up our parkade for more visitors, for more participation. I think it keeps us safer as a community, and it encourages education and forward thinking in our community. I'm concerned about the university also, and I'm concerned about the children going back to school. I'm concerned about everybody, and that's why I always wear a mask. But when I see people that don't wear a mask, I think to myself, I care about you. Why don't you care about me? I'm an older person, and my husband has health issues, and I'm terrified of spreading this. And our numbers in the state here are not acceptable numbers of contagion. I feel like we've kind of plateaued, and we are on the verge of having a major outbreak, I think, with the schools opening up. So I would encourage you to support this resolution. I would support the fact that we work close with the city of Waterloo. I think that's important. And I think it's important in very many ways, but that's what I have to say tonight. I live at 1716 Clay Street in Cedar Falls. Thank you.
Ms. Yarmello. Next speaker I have, let me just lower a hand here. Next speaker I have is Laura Jimenez. So Ms. Jimenez, go right ahead, ma'am. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Laura Roman Jimenez. I live over at 204 Magnolia Drive. I am calling in to support the resolution for the mask mandate in the city of Cedar Falls. I think it's very important that we do so. Adding on to what the doctor said, I apologize, I forgot her name.
Dr. Egbuni.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Egbuni. I am a student at the university, and what we do have is we are known as a backpack school. A lot of our students are usually going home and traveling a lot during the weekends. And even now we have students who I have heard of going to parties, going en masse, and even those who go to Ames and go to Ada one day, and then coming back and putting our community members at risk. I also, to echo along with what some of the community members said, at times I have reduced the amount of times that I've gone to local businesses just because I don't feel safe going in without a mask, thinking of my family and everyone else. Even if this can save or just help the health of one person, I think it is worth it to do so. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So next speaker I show is from College Hill Partnership. So go right ahead.
This is Catherine Sogard. I'm the Executive Director of the College Hill Partnership. I live at 330 Columbia Circle in Waterloo. I did send this letter out to the mayor and council, but since we were delayed in getting it to you, I would like to read it publicly. So
yes, please, go ahead.
You can all hear it. Okay. Mayor and City Council, the College Hill Partnership Board of Directors encourages the Mayor and City Council of Cedar Falls to support and implement a resolution for a face mask mandate for the City of Cedar Falls. The public health of our community in Cedar Falls and on College Hill directly impacts our citizens, businesses, and neighbors. It affects them physically and emotionally, and it impacts our entire community's economic health. Our organization's purpose includes making appropriate actions which will ensure the College Hill neighborhood is an attractive, safe, innovative, and desirable place to live, work, and visit. We believe a mask mandate is one of those actions. With the requirement of masks or facial coverings on the University of Northern Iowa campus and the City of Waterloo enacting a mask mandate, we, the CHP, believe it is vital for Cedar Falls to play our part. We hope with a possible mask mandate in the City of Cedar Falls, we will reduce the spread of COVID-19, therefore protecting the health, wellness, and well-being of our neighbors and friends. Doing everything we can to prevent the spread of COVID-19 will help us keep our community safe, students on campus, and businesses open at this challenging time. We, the College Hill Partnership, understand sometimes we have to give a little to get a lot. Neighbors and businesses and landlords uphold our organization's foundation by coming together and giving of themselves for the betterment of the entire College Hill overlay. Suppose you have concerns about limiting freedoms, enforcement requirements, or becoming overly political. In that case, we encourage you to listen to Waterloo Councilman Jonathan Greider's full comments at the August 18th, 2020 Waterloo Council meeting. And we included the YouTube link for council and the mayor to review, as well as the time where his remarks start at that meeting, because it is a longer meeting. We hope that you will support a local mask mandate to protect the citizens of Cedar Falls and ensure that our business community can continue to stay open and serve all those who work, live, and play in the city of Cedar Falls and on College Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sogard. Our next speaker is Lauren Holst. So Lauren, you have the floor, 5 minutes.
I have one comment and one question. My comment is on the exception to masking for moderate and high intensity exercise.
Okay.
I live at 1212 West 16th Street, which is near the College Hill, and frequent exercisers in the neighborhood. I would love to see consideration for adding language clarifying about maintaining physical distancing, because it's not uncommon to have somebody running up behind you, and before you can step aside, they've already blown past you breathing heavily. And with more information coming out about potential spread with that kind of exertion, I think that's important. And then my question is, in order to reduce the risk of spreading COVID-19 in the jails and prisons, are there internal police policies on the use of face masks by the Cedar Falls Police Department, since there's an exception in the proposal in order to protect members of the public who perhaps aren't in a position to be able to physically distance themselves because of the situation that they're in, where they're being detained?
Okay. Yes, and so we'll answer that at the end of public comment, but appreciate the comment. Next speaker that we have is Mike Butler. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Two things. I'm hoping someday that we'll actually get to see numbers that I can understand on how we are doing with all of this. But my main concern is, I bet I have a half dozen paper masks, and you're, I believe, going to make them all illegal. And I didn't read anywhere where paper versus cloth, washable cloth, is a better system. So hopefully I can still use my paper masks. Thank you.
And our next speaker we have is Diane Larson. So Ms. Larson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for listening to me. I've been living in.
And just for a moment, if we have someone with a dog, if you could mute your mic while your dog is talking to friends.
I don't have one here, so.
It's not you.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
All right. I live at 1016 Columbia Drive in Cedar Falls. I'm very close to the campus. My husband and I have had 4 children graduate from Cedar Falls High School, and 2 children from the university here. So we're very interested in the community and have been involved in the community. I have a serious health challenge that, you know, when I go out, I always have to wear a mask. Sometimes I wear also a visor. And what I've noticed over time is that I have gotten, you know, more concerned about going out and being out in the public than I ever was in the past. I look at people differently because if they're not wearing a mask, I'm at risk. So I joined a Facebook group that everyone can contribute and tell what their experience has been going to like different restaurants or hairstylists or whatever, so that there's actually a list that details people's experience about whether they encountered people wearing masks or staff or whatever, or if they didn't, and what their concerns are. Really, their praise also for different establishments. I think that the person that brought it up, that there would be economic, benefit to people wearing masks. So people like me and all these other people who are on this Facebook group can go out in public and feel comfortable, feel safer. I think that was really a good point to make. And I would like to see that if there could be some sort of public health tips or on the news or from the council on things that people could do. If this passes, keep a mask in your car. have a mask in your pocket, have a mask, an extra mask in your purse, all these different kinds of things that we could educate people on to make them feel more comfortable about using masks. And that's really about all I had to say. I think this is very informative and really, I'm enjoying listening to it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Larson. Our next speaker, our public speaker, will be Vicky. So if you could please give your name and address for the record.
My name is Vicki Van Houen. I live at 1315 Franklin Street, and I am very much opposed to this ordinance. I'm tired of being a copycat city to Waterloo. Many times we end up following their lead. We're our own entity, and we need to remember that. Another thing, I have a spouse and several friends who will not go to businesses if there is a mask required. I think we would lose dollars in our city if this ordinance passes. Also, for those who are not from our area, how are they going to know that they have to wear a mask in our town? Is there going to be signage? How much is that going to cost our city to get those signs all over town? And you had mentioned, I believe it was section 6, about 6 weeks. I'm wondering if miraculously this pandemic disappears, which would be wonderful. Prior to that time, would we still have to wear masks? And if there's no enforcement to this, why bother? If the Attorney General of the state of Iowa says that we can't do it, why are we even considering this? Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Van Houen. Our next speaker is Ms. Saul. So Leanne Saul, you have the floor.
Leanne Saul, 1825 Green Hill Road. So the couple of questions that I had, and I'd sent an email to many of you, Ron Gaines, Mayor, and council members. How long will this be in place? You said 6 weeks. I guess the question I have is, what is the criteria? What are the numbers that is motivating you to present this today? And then what is the threshold that we need to be able to end the mandated mask wearing? I would like to hear those numbers tonight, because that is important. Are we just going on feeling good and feeling safe, or what is the exact number criteria that we are using to make this decision? And I do agree with Vicki in how are we going to treat our visitors? So we have visitors coming to our city to do business and they don't bring a mask, they don't wear a mask. Is every business going to be required to supply masks to those visitors? And then how are we going to treat them? How does that make one feel coming into our city and then being told, oh, you can't be here or you have to wear a mask? I think that's important to our business owners. And the other thing is, it's just going to pit neighbor against neighbor and person against person. It already is happening. And is our city ready to take those extra nuisance phone calls? And then what are you going to do about it? When someone calls and says, hey, this person's not wearing a mask, or this group's got 2 people not wearing a mask, or I just went to Hy-Vee and this person's not wearing a mask. Is that what we should be spending our time on as a city? Why don't we leave this to the Blackhawk County Health Supervisor or the Blackhawk County Health Department? Let people, is it going to be law enforcement's job to educate everyone? I think not. I think this is a road that we do not need to go down. I think that people have enough common sense to know what they need to do. And if they don't, like, I won't wear a mask because I get anxiety and I get headaches. So I refuse to wear a mask. And what are you going to do, Craig? Throw me in jail? Give me a ticket? What?
Please address me as the speaker, Ms. Saul.
All right, Mayor, what are you going to do? You're going to have Craig throw me in jail or give me a fine? I think that's the bottom line here. Really, what is this all about? And do we really want to go down this road? I would urge you not to support a mask mandate. Education's great. I understand that. But I think going down this road is not good for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Next speaker is Jenny Bagastenzos. Did I get that correct, ma'am? Or is that Bagenstos? I've got you unmuted there. Yes, go ahead, ma'am. Okay, I have you as unmuted, but I'm not hearing anything from you. Looks like she's trying that again here. Just a moment. Okay, so Jenny, I'm going to try to unmute you myself again.
Okay.
Yes, I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
you fine now, ma'am.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, Jenny Bagenstos, 220 Main Street, Cedar Falls. I'm the owner of Here's What's Poppin'. I have reached out to you today, Mayor Green, and I've also reached out to some of the council members. I do not support the mask mandate. I've actually, I've been pretty vocal about it with the downtown group, and it has caused a lot of friction, and people that we have been neighbors with. This whole mask issue has divided our downtown, divided our community, and it's unfortunate that it is this way. Maybe at the beginning, if you would have said it, maybe that would have been okay. But the thing that I took a couple notes, and I would like to bring this up, a couple of things. To the person that talked about volunteering and stuff and people over 80, you know, I don't think that someone who is 80, we should take consideration onto that, people working downtown, because they're already at a risk. That's one thing. Most people that do come to our store, they come in with the mask. I'm not anti-mask, I'm just anti not telling people what to do. It's not my place, or I don't feel like it's the city's place to mandate laws that the governor is not doing. And I want to welcome all people into our neighborhoods. I want all customers to be able to come in and feel welcome. And like I said, most people are wearing a mask, so I don't see why the reason is that we need to mandate them. The other thing is there's been a lot of talk about people and money, and we would have an increase in sales if we welcomed everyone. My store is not one that has a mask mandate, and I will let you know that my sales were higher in 2020, last month, than they were in 2019. So that has not proved true to my store, because I do not have a sign that says masks are mandatory. The other thing is, I'm curious too, what is the reason? What is the reason behind this? Is it because Waterloo brought it up, or why are we doing this? If you read some of the comments on Facebook when Waterloo did it, there are a lot of comments that people says, making it real easy to shop online, boycott this town. These are not things that as a business owner that I want people to be saying about my business. I want people to come and feel welcomed in our communities. And again, I wear a mask, we wear masks, but we're just not mandating. And I don't think it's necessary. And there's been talk about the Facebook group. I will tell you that that has also been a problem. We have been shamed as businesses, and you know, if you say you do the mask, it's great. But if you're a business like mine that says masks are not required, it has been pretty ugly for us, and people have been shaming us, and it's been a real hard time for businesses. And now it feels like the city is saying, rewarding that shaming and saying that masks are mandated and everything. So it's very frustrating. I guess I'd like to just close with saying, you know, I have a store in Waterloo and Cedar Falls. So it's been a very hard week for me. I did not go in business to be spending my time fighting with council and trying to get things resolved to work best for my business. I wanted to bring joy to the community and not have to deal with this. So again, I don't support it, and I hope you could take that into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Bagenstos. Our next speaker is Lindsay Messer. So if you can please let me unmute you here.
Come on, Jenny.
And name and address for the record, please, Ms. Lindsay. So Ms. Messer, I've got you unmuted, but I'm not hearing anything yet. We'll give you a few seconds. I know sometimes it's a matter of hitting the buttons on the phone to get them to work right. Okay, can you speak now, Ms. Messer? Okay, still nothing. So I don't see any other hands up right now from new speakers. So if council will indulge me, I would like to give, I received a phone call earlier today, and I'll just note too from Ms. Bagenstos that I did receive several phone calls this afternoon, probably council did also. And just to tally those phone calls, we had 7 that were business owners from downtown that all were opposed to the mandate. And then I had 2 phone calls that were in favor. The total that came out was, in the phone calls, was 2 in favor and 14 against. And then there also were quite a few emails that had gone to council and staff as well. So just wanted to let you know if you had sent in or called in earlier today, the messages that I received, we did forward on to council, so everyone had a chance to hear that. So Ms. Messer, do we have any more luck with you being able to speak? Okay, still seeing none. I do see Seth's hand. So Seth, if you would like to speak for public comment, I just need a name and address for the record, please.
Sorry, this is my husband's computer. So my name is Jessie Vickers.
Yes, Ms. Vickers, go ahead.
I'm at 1531 Andover Court here in Cedar Falls. My family is struggling like every family here. And I just would like to say that this isn't easy for any of us. And we have been wearing masks everywhere. And to the business owners who do not want to do that, I'm going to tell you right now that myself and several of my friends have been choosing not to go out to the businesses. The only businesses I have been to are Menards, Walmart, and Target. I have not taken my children to the playground since this has started, not once. Whenever we drive by, there are many people there not wearing masks. And that terrifies me because it tells me that people are making choices out of their selfish personal reasons, not because they want to protect others. They don't have a value beyond protecting others. And I don't think that that's acceptable. And if we force the mandate or push for a mandate, then that's going to hopefully encourage people who would maybe need a little nudge to do the right thing. I'm going to be continuing to stay home for the remainder of this time and choosing not to go to businesses that don't require masks. It is just our personal feeling of safety. We don't know how long this is going to last, and it's hard for all of us. So I would like to encourage you to vote for the mandate. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Vickers. I see also now Catherine Zeman. Dr. Zeman, you're welcome to speak. Just provide name and address for the record, please.
Okay, thank you. Unmute.
Yep, we hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Catherine Zeman. I'm a professor of environmental health science with a background in epidemiology and human diseases. I also have an RN. My PhD is in preventive medicine from the University of Iowa. And I would encourage everyone here to think about what is happening to our country and to push yourself to step up and do the right thing. We have now over 171,000 deaths in this country. This has become the 3rd leading cause of death in our country in less than 6 months. I understand that it's inconvenient for a period of time to do this, but considering the massive loss of life that we're experiencing, considering the dangers that we still don't understand of long-term effects of children happened to get this. We know that 78% of the individuals who have had COVID show signs of cardiac inflammation, not knowing if that will actually end up being something long-term that's a problem for people. But this is even in asymptomatic and, cases where people really aren't having any symptoms and have the supposed mild case. So I think for a period of time, and a short period of time probably is, there's at least 3 vaccines that are showing a lot of promise and are in the third step of, trials. This is something we should really consider doing. We have brought schools back online. We've opened the university, and we've done that outside of the CDC guidelines. I mean, CDC and the World Health Organization suggest a 5% positivity rate in communities to open schools and universities. We're, at 9 or a little above today. So this gives us a chance, if everyone would follow this, of preventing well over 80% of potential infections. But if I'm just wearing a cloth mask and there are people walking around me who are not wearing those masks, that mask only protects me about 30%. So unless I'm wearing an N95 mask, which we are wearing the cloth mask to try and preserve those for serious at-risk people and our medical care providers. The other issue that really bothers me is that we just sit back and say, well, because I don't want to be bothered, because it's an inconvenience, because it's dividing me and my neighbors, I'm just going to let the medical care providers take care of these issues. So we'll just let the frontline nurses and doctors sacrifice themselves because it's too inconvenient for us to use a face covering. And that, to me, is incredibly disappointing. We use them to protect others, and we use them to protect and respect our medical care providers. So I just wanted to provide some of those opinions and then also provide some numbers to illustrate what a serious situation we're in. I do believe that there was a request for some numbers about why should we be so concerned about this. And I think the numbers are clearly there. So that's all I needed to say. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Dr. Seaman. Next speaker for public comment I have is Julie Shimmick. So Ms. Shimmick, you have the floor, 5 minutes.
Hello, Council. I am a business, or I guess Julie Shimmick, 104 Main Street. I'm neutral on this subject. Wear a mask if you feel the need, and unmask if you have a health issue. Our store is on Main Street, and we do not require a mask, but 99% of the people that come in our store are masked. My only problem is if you would come in my store and watch those wearing the masks, you will see it all the way from touching the mask, taking the mask off, smelling candles, putting the mask back on. We had a lady take our mask off the other day, put one of our types of masks on, and then take it off and put it back. I was assisting another customer, couldn't stop her from doing that, so I quickly had to pull that mask from the floor. So I believe, as the doctor said, education is our key, and we really need to inform the public of proper mask wearing. I pick up probably 5-6 masks a day thrown on our sidewalks downtown in the parking lot, just because I don't know if it's a statement they're making that I don't want to wear this, but some stores require masks, so they hand them out. But then they turn around, the people leave and they throw them on the ground, or you just accidentally drop them. Or, I think we've all probably went out to go someplace and went, oh no, my mask, and then ran back to get it. But there's other issues involved with it. And I think the biggest issue is the proper wearing of a mask and not necessarily mandating a mask, because like I said, in my store, I would say 98% of the people, 99, are wearing masks. I have had a few elderly people come in and, they'll peek in the door, do you require a mask? And we say, it's your choice, because I don't feel I can dictate where they go and how I'm open for public business, so they should be allowed to come in as they are. And they come in and then they'll thank me because, oh, my husband has a severe health issue. He can't wear a mask, and there's very few places they can go. So I try and be considerate of my customers. We've had a ton of out-of-state people these past 2 months coming down from Minnesota, from Illinois, because they can't enjoy their city like we can here. So it's kind of odd that, you know, they're leaving their cities with the intent of coming and visiting ours because we are a tad bit more open than they are. So I would consider that, but a mandate I don't think will solve everything when if you've been in a store and seen everybody touch everything and then grab their mask and then throw it in their pocket, grab it back out, put it on without even washing their hands. My friend works in dialysis, and she gave me the extreme how to take the mask off, put it in a bag, take your gloves off, wash your hands, put them back on, the gloves back on to put your mask back on. So there's a big education piece we're missing, and I just think throwing on a mask and then hanging it on your rearview mirror and then putting it back on is not the answer. So, but that's my 2 cents and my experience in my store.
Thank you, Ms. Schmick. And just for public to be aware, in these sessions and the public comment, it's a single opportunity to speak. So I see a few hands from folks who've already spoken. Just know that I will be calling on only new people. So I see a hand from Paget Technologies. So if you could please give your name and address for the record as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, just fine.
Sure. My name is Zachary Toma. I live at 861 Mocker Road. Sorry for the company name. I'm on my work computer because I'm out of town for work. So
totally fine.
Side effect. I am strongly opposed to a mask mandate, and I guess I'll lead with my primary concern. My son, oldest son, is 3 years old, and he's going to preschool next week, and that's his first foray into public without his parents. And what I'm concerned about with this mandate is does that mean that somebody there has basically the authority to forcibly put a mask on his face at 3 years old? That's not something that's clear to me. So that's a question that I guess I'm posing outside of my other concerns. That I have a lot of problems with that, aside from just the basics of somebody who's not my child's parent in his first foray into the world without his parents being able to forcibly apply a mask to his face without him having really the ability even to voice an objection or do anything about it. So that's something I would like to hear from the council when you get the chance about or take into consideration. Second, I travel a lot for work. I'm in Chicago right now. I wasn't going to be able to make it, thought I wasn't going to be able to make it home, but here I am. I've been in Minnesota and Lincoln, Nebraska recently, where they have a mask mandate, as well as Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I can't tell you, as just a free-thinking person, how infantilizing it feels to walk into a place of business. And by all means, if a business wants to put a mandate in place, no problem. That's their right. But to walk down the street or into a place of business and literally have to walk 20 feet from one place to another and have someone jump on you because you don't have your mask on. I believe that the fear that's being driven by this has gotten a little out of control. And I think I do question the numbers. I know there's a lot of political misgivings about the numbers, and it's way too deep to get into over here. But I do have a lot of questions about the numbers of people who have died with COVID. But if you look at the Black Hawk County numbers, I think I saw 14 cases a day we average. That's 0.00009% of the population. And I'm looking at our hospital rates, and not only are they stable, they're next to nil for COVID patients. Now that's good news. I mean, that's great. But I'm wondering why it seems that we sound the alarm when all of a sudden, oh, there's a new COVID case. And it seems like we encourage a knee-jerk reaction to, oh God, we better panic. I am far more interested in a level-headed approach where we can practice safety and protection of the people who are most vulnerable at the same time. I heard someone earlier talking about someone running behind them, past them and they're breathing heavy. If we're going to go by the science tells you are not at a risk there, but somehow we're allowing ourselves, and I believe we're allowing ourselves to believe that we are at a risk if we're passing by someone on the street who's breathing. And I believe that a mask mandate reinforces that mentality. And I believe that I don't believe there's any proof to support it. I haven't seen it yet. And I believe that I believe that's terrible for our city. That's my 2 cents. I appreciate your time, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Toma. And do we have any other speakers for public comment who have not spoken previously? Okay, so I see Lindsay Messer. Ms. Messer, is this?
Can you hear me now? I'm on a different device.
I can, and you hadn't spoken
Perfect.
previously, correct?
I have not. I
Okay.
tried to, and I had to switch devices.
Yes, please go right ahead, Ms. Messer.
All right, Lindsay Messer. I own Beautiful Mess Boutique on 5 Corners. I am not part of the downtown, but I'm close enough that I feel like I am. We have been here for a little over a year and a half, and voted best of the best women's boutique. We're really successful. Our sales this year are much higher than last year, so losing sales has not been a factor for us. We do not currently require masks in our store. I believe that it's people's right to choose, and like other business owners have said, most of the people that come into our store, they are wearing masks. But I have had people who have specifically contacted me because they don't want to wear a mask and they feel that there aren't very many places to shop anymore that don't require them. People who have anxiety, people who have been abused, and when they have a mask over their face, they feel like, someone's hand is over their face. Psychological issues, stuff like that. So those people have been very thankful that we don't require masks. Our dressing rooms are also open, which is unusual. And part of the reason that I went into business for myself is so that I could be in control and make decisions on my own. So I didn't necessarily go into business on my own to be a business owner, to have people tell me what to do. And that's why I'm the boss, basically. And so we also offer online, so people can take advantage of that. When Governor Reynolds mandated the shutdown, we shut down and we paid our employees, and we have a very strong online presence already. And so that was no big deal for us to shift to online sales. Of course, people missed shopping in person. But to echo what other people have said, we have not received any pushback, except for I do know that there is the Facebook shaming group. I have seen posts about us in there because our employees do not wear masks, because everyone that works here, except for one employee that works in the back who has chosen to wear a mask, I've left it all up to all of my girls' discretion, and all of them, myself included, except for the one girl that works in the back, have chosen not to wear masks. We always make sure that we have distance between customers. We're constantly spraying and sanitizing stuff. But to control, especially as business owners, what the heart and soul of your community with Main Street and with small business, people come from out of town to come shop in Cedar Falls. And if people want to wear a mask, that's fine. But like other people said, I see them setting it down, touching their face. They take it off anyway to try on clothes. Most people do. It falls on the floor. They put it back on. It's really not the way that it's supposed to be done if you are going to wear a mask correctly. And like the gentleman before me said, I too have traveled all over. I've been to Dallas. I've been to Omaha. I've flown on a plane. And obviously for the airplane, I had to wear a mask. But to require it as a business owner, I personally choose to live my life, and I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to live in fear, and I don't want my customers to live in fear. If they want to wear it, that's up to them. But me as a business owner, to post a sign on the door, to be required to do that, that's the exact opposite of why I went into business on my own. I just don't feel like that's something that should be imposed upon us. So yeah, that's basically my piece.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I see Kim Baer, who is the Executive Director of Community Main Street. So Ms. Baer, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Kim Baer, 3815 Union Road, and like the Mayor said, I'm the Executive Director of Community Main Street. We don't have a stance similar to college. We're not the same as College Health Partnership on this one. I agree that in order for us to truly represent everyone in our district, we can either support or oppose a mask mandate. You've heard from business owners already tonight that oppose it, and we've got just as many that support it. So I don't envy the shoes that you are filling this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any final speakers for public comment? Okay, then I will bring it back to council now and open it up for questions and dialogue. I also, this might be a good time for me to ask for some answers from the questions that came up earlier. One was, if this were to pass, has there been consideration for the police department and how it would handle masks as part of law enforcement operations and so protecting people who've been pulled over or taken in?
Well, Mayor, I would say our operations would stay the same, and officers and our firefighters, all our public safety personnel are wearing their mask whenever they're interacting with the public or outside of their vehicles, with a few exceptions in dynamic situations or fire scenes and things like that. Once somebody's transported to the Blackhawk County Jail, I can't speak for what they do once they're over at the jail.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Looking at the second question, it asked, what are the numbers that are the threshold that we would need to make a change if we found that the resolution passed and we were before 6 weeks, we found there's a precipitous decline after 3 weeks, and so there was a sense that this mandate could be dropped. Has that been a consideration at all from Waterloo, or are we aware of how we would handle this proclamation or the change? So from the idea of ending it, certainly we could do that sooner if we saw that there was a value to it. It would just be a matter of council creating a new resolution to expire early. Now, as far as the numbers and what would be required, I think that is up for council discussion to say if council does wish to have the mandate, what would you view as a council as the litmus for making additional changes or potentially removing that mandate if it were to exist? So I'll leave that question for council when they're in their discussion phase. And for the question for masks, if we required of businesses, will we be providing masks to businesses to carry out? Or I know we would do that in city buildings, but as I understand it, there'd be no provision for having that in public building or in private buildings or retail. That would be handled or need to be handled by the business themselves, as I understand it. So with that, I'll turn it over to council for additional questions you have, or if you want to go into the discussion phase. This is so important. I don't want to have us really limited to looking at the clock on this. I hope we can work this out and have our discussion in the time that's required, whether it's soon or whether this takes a while. So with that, I'll turn it over to Councilor Harding. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Oh man, this is definitely a tough one. I took some notes as people were speaking, and I'm just going to read through those quickly. And a couple of them are questions, and then some of them are statements. I definitely want people to wear masks. I wear my mask. This is why it's super tough for me. I want to educate people and universally push safety. There's obviously a local state clash that we have to figure out, or we'll help, we'll figure out in the future. But the issue I'm really having is about unenforceable mandates and what we're doing to the citizens. What are we going to do if someone goes into a business and isn't wearing a mask? Are we setting up a mandate that's going to create public clashes and even more fickle positions for business owners because we can't enforce it? I want the businesses to be bettered economically and people to feel safe. But if we push this mandate and there's no enforceability, then are we not going to just end up in the same place where people who aren't wearing masks are just going to continue to not wear masks because they realize that they don't have to? We can't do anything about it. So I guess I'm trying to figure out and balance what we achieve by mandating things that are unenforceable. And that's where my big thing is, because I am a mask wearer. I believe in the science of wearing a mask properly. But from a government standpoint, what are we actually achieving by mandating something that's unenforceable? And so that's, as we do our discussion, I think that's an important thing to answer.
Councilmember DeBerry, go ahead.
Well, clearly this is a decisive issue that appears to deeply divide our citizens. I believe that Governor Reynolds has a positive campaign on social distancing, mask wearing when appropriate, washing hands. I'd like to see us unify behind Governor Reynolds and uphold her recommendations for voluntary compliance, rather than divide our community with an unenforceable mandatory resolution. I'd like to see us do more as a positive with education and voluntary compliance and to uphold her recommendations rather than this. And I don't believe we've done any of the recommendations from the mayor as far as trying to do more education and positive with voluntary compliance.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, real quick.
Yes, Councilmember Harding, go ahead.
Is there a way, instead of, and this is just throwing out an idea for council to talk about, is there a way instead of mandating that it's making something you have to wear a mask, even though we can't enforce it, is there a way that we make a mandate or a resolution that recommends and supports people wearing masks? Something that, I don't know what the difference is there, but is there another way we can back end or support and educate people and truly move things forward in a positive way without creating this weird divide between people and something that we want them to do, but we can't make them do? Just food for thought. Other council members.
Yes, Councilmember Dara, go ahead.
I would agree with Simon that, and I appreciated comments earlier about focusing on education as opposed to consequating misbehavior or uneducated behavior. I really think a lot of it is making people aware of the impact of this. So I like the idea of being more, educating more, maybe holding in abeyance some sort of mandate, but rather more strongly encourage, be more proactive in engaging the public in what are the issues? Why is this so important? I do think it's important that why I wanted to have this discussion, I think it's important that the community realize that the council sees this as an important issue, that we're not just looking the other way. And I don't think we're wanting to copy Waterloo, but I do think we need to be consistent throughout the Cedar Valley that this is an important issue. We're paying attention to it. We can put together some sort of educational program to enlighten both mask wearers and business owners, so that, our economy has struggled the last few months, but I've heard a lot of business owners tonight say that they're doing pretty well. And I don't want to impede that, but at the same time, I want those people that are, the other people who spoke tonight that are afraid to go out or uncomfortable, to know that the city leadership is given this serious consideration. We're looking at options to keep them safe, but also keep the businesses operating. And I think we can be reasonable and come up with some middle ground here. I think the mandate that you've shared with us tonight is maybe something good to have if the numbers get really bad. But I just think we need to be more purposeful about educating the public and demonstrating that the city has their back and we want to help them stay safe. So I appreciate you putting together the mandate, but it's almost more than what I was expecting. But I don't want to drop the ball either.
And keep in mind too that it could be if the consensus for council, the desire from council is to not just to wait until the numbers change, it would be possible to just postpone or table this indefinitely rather than vote it down fully. So just know that that's an option.
And I like that, especially if in the interim, we're looking at interventions. We're looking at how do we engage the public better? How do we engage the business people that are opposed to this? How do we help them recognize that our goal isn't to put them out of business. Our goal is to keep them open and invite more people. But until we can be assured that the numbers are good, I don't want to be foolhardy about it either.
Okay. And I'll ask too, Dr. Egbuoni, are you still with us? No, she's probably darted off to the side doing something there. But okay, so we don't have her just yet, so maybe she'll join us shortly. Yes, continuing for council discussion then.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Sires, go ahead.
I have a problem with it. Infringes on everyone's freedoms. The people who want to wear masks, the people that don't want to wear masks, the businesses that want to be exclusive to have masks. It starts to let government dictate on people's freedoms to choose. I think we have a tremendously wise and smart community here, and I believe through them we'll whip all this COVID stuff. Just for us to legislate one direction or another, I think is quite wrong. But I do like to hear from everyone, and it's been quite educational on which direction, but I also want to err on the side of freedom. Everybody's freedom is important to me. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Again, Councilmember Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I want to kind of hit on a fact here that's, with the analytics I go through on decision making. The size of the virus cell is such that the only effective mask is an N95 mask, and that's if the mask is properly fitted and tested to conform to your face. And I've consulted with several reputable medical professionals who have confirmed this through numerous months of discussion again and again. So I think we are fooling ourselves a little bit to think that if we put some sort of cloth triangle or whatever on our face, that we suddenly become bulletproof or invincible or what have you. So that's one component I want to add. The other thing, having worked for many decades now with college-age kids, and we're in a college town, I can say that since March, spring break, whenever that was, that the campus was closed and my business did not suffer as a landlord. I'm actually fuller than I was many years before. And if anybody has raised teenagers, the ability to control a teenager is pretty low. So trying to mandate masks in that regard, I think is going to be difficult. This past Saturday, I did the second time I did a ride around with the police department patrolling. And at the College Hill, I would say, I think we saw one person with a mask out of many hundreds of college-age kids. And to tell them that they have to wear a mask, I think is probably foolhardy, really. But I like Simon's recommendation, and when it's appropriate, I could offer to amend this to be a recommendation and not a mandate. So I guess if we're ready to do that, I would offer that as a.
Okay, and let me bring up that the text again. So the text said, whereas a requirement that persons wear a face covering is not irreconcilable. In these parts where it says requirement, we could do an amendment to change those to say, whereas a strong recommendation that persons wear a face mask is not irreconcilable, and then language down into here. Every person in Cedar Falls must wear a face covering. You could change that language if you desire as part of that amendment. So is that compatible with what you were saying, Councilmember Cruz?
Exactly. I think it preserves the freedom of choice. We're educating people to understand what, many people have a very strong concern. At the same time, there's many people that, other beliefs, and we heard from many of these people. So
I actually, just for the point of, or keep an order in the meeting, you've motioned it to do a change, Councilmember Cruz, to be a suggestion. So I would ask then for a second to that amendment.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councilmember Dara seconded. Now we can go continue discussion in that.
So without having I have the document in front of me, without going through there and finding every definitive word, such as mandate or a requirement, and making it a recommendation, I would let that up to Mr. Rogers or other city staff to, if the right word is soften it up or make it more palatable for the public in many regards here as a recommendation.
Okay, so Councilmember DeBeer, go ahead.
Just for clarity, would it be easier if we simply either voted yes or no for the original motion and then ask it, like what Darrell says with making the changes, to ask the attorney to make the changes and then at a later time approve that, just so that we could actually see what all these, it sounds like there might be several changes. And that way we could actually see the changes.
Okay, and I'm seeing a head nod from Mr. Rogers. Also, when it comes to headlines for newspapers, I want to make sure there's no ambiguity about what happened tonight for the voting. So, yes, Councilmember Miller, go ahead.
Just to get some thoughts out here. I'm glad I had the day off today because I spent most of it on this topic. So, and I'm appreciative. I think I heard from over 100 people today, and some of that, Mayor, thanks for forwarding on stuff that you heard, but no, despite your take on this topic, it's good to hear from people. I wear a mask. I've been on the fence on both sides of this all day long, going back and forth, talking with business owners downtown, talking with CMS, talking with residents. And I do think it's important for us as a governmental agency to have this conversation. So to Councilman Dara, I'm glad this got brought up. I don't know that I'm ready to fully support a mandate, and I guess most of that comes back to the unenforceable part about it, because I don't like putting things on the books that we can't enforce, and I do think that also can cause issues for business owners. I've heard from business owners today that put their own mask mandate in June and told me they can't count how many people said thank you for having this in place, and seeing their customer numbers rise because it was in place, just as much as I heard from other people that don't want to see it and think that it's knocked their numbers down. So ultimately, I think the thing for me at this point is the business side of it. And I guess I do think it's wise for us, like I said, as a governmental agency to have something out there. And I think the strong recommendation is probably the best way to go with it right now. To be honest, I'm nervous as hell about school starting back up. And I feel like there's going to be a whole lot of houses with some aspect of COVID. And I'm nervous about that. That said, my son's going back to school. So I think everybody's sharing in kind of the uncertainty of what we're doing right now. But ultimately for me, I don't want to put any more strain one way or the other on businesses. And I do hope that many of them are putting in place some type of an effort for requesting that their customers wear masks, but I don't like trying to control that. So thank you.
Okay. And I would like to hear from Dr. Egloni as a comment on that.
Yeah, so I wanted to comment on certain things just from a public health perspective. You know, it's just very unfortunate how face coverings or mask has been politicized. The health department has been dealing with this crisis for several months. I will tell you, we have a very passionate staff. They are dedicated, they are committed, but it has been a very difficult time for us. And a lot of it is because of language. So when the proclamations were coming out and there was wording like recommendations, we were the ones that were getting calls as to whether, is this required? Should I do it? Should I not? It created a lot of confusion from our response, because it's like, okay, so do we recommend people to wear seatbelts or not? You know, and it's become something where for us at a local health department, it's been very difficult for us to continue to explain why it's what we're saying is we're requiring. So even the guidance for the schools, we had to look at different examples, you know, outside of Iowa for what those models have been, because there's 99 counties in Iowa, but they're very different, in particular Black Hawk County. And so that is my I hope that you guys can hear my concern in my voice, because it's going to become serious. You know, we have K through 12, we have the universities, and so language, I mean, in regards to recommendations, people are not going to know what that really means. You know, they're really not. And that's what's been happening even from our state response. In addition, when we talk about data, just 2 days ago, it was published that the state had issues with data. And let me tell you from experience, we had those issues. We really did. And that's why I personally decided, no, we're going to really zoom in on the data that we have here with our local hospital entities, because we couldn't rely on the surveillance system from the state. It is not a system that can really do the type of surveillance and give us the type of data we need for control. That is the reality. Our state partners know that. We know that. And so I think that it's so important to be mindful of how language can also be meaningless. You know, what does recommendation mean? Even the schools, they were like, so do we or do we not? Because sectors are not used to addressing this. Just yet, on August 18, the Journal of American Medical Association published an article about universal mask in comparison to the N95s. And there is evidence that it works. Studies have shown that it works, you know? And so for me, it's just, my plea is to even as a council, if you're thinking about recommendation, what does that mean? If we see the numbers rising, what does that mean? I have a 5-year-old. He's starting Hanson on Monday. He is ready and to go, but I'm concerned. And so I mean, maybe there needs to be more discussion around language, because I don't think it's gonna move the needle forward. It's people are still going to do what they're going to do. But I think that in regards to education, when we see that there's a resolution that says it's required, the health department will continue to educate. We have gone even to downtown Cedar Falls when DIA said, okay, we need to monitor the social distancing. I said, we educate before we enforce. But you will have people that will be resistant to this. And so what do we do in that moment? So I guess that's really my ask, is that when you're considering making changes, think about what you're asking the community to do. And I think it's the responsibility of our elected officials to make decisions that perhaps not everybody will buy in, but it will protect the people. Seat belts, the water supply that we drink, jaywalking, I gave that as an example. So all of those things, I just, it's really, I'm very concerned about what the fall is going to look like. All the medical directors for our hospital entities are in support of a mask mandate, because we have seen firsthand when the emergency rooms become inundated, what it looks like. It's a really horrible situation to deal with. So I'm just trying to figure out, with the support of you all, how to continue to respond to this for the fall, where we will have a combination of the flu. So what do we do in that moment? Thank you. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Yes, sir. Councilmember Dunn, go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with everything the doctor just said. Somebody asked me earlier today, why has this all of a sudden come up? Why has this change come about all of a sudden? And I gave the example of, now we have students from UNI coming back to our town, and they all came from their small towns. And so we have that inundation. We have our children returning to schools. Some of them are staying at home, but a lot of us are essential, and we have to utilize our public school system for our children to go back to. The colder months are coming. So this time of being outside, which is great, I feel like that's what Dr. Fauci says, as much as we can be outside when we're together is good. That's going to start to come to an end as our winter approaches. Flu season is coming. Anyone who works in the medical field knows how deadly the flu season is. That is a respiratory illness. Influenza is a respiratory illness compounded with COVID-19, which is a respiratory illness. This is the thing about, I hate fighting. I hate division. I'm a mask wearer. I have friends who don't wear masks. I'm not, each side does their own little bit of shaming. The thing is, the reason why masks are important is, okay, you can not wear a mask in a certain place, but once you're exposed, if you're asymptomatic, you're carrying it everywhere. And we don't know that we're obviously, if you're asymptomatic, you don't know if you have it. If we all pretend like we have it and we wear the mask, then science tells us the numbers go down. I understand, I don't want to hurt a business. I feel like we need to loosen some of our restrictions as a city, especially during the warmer months when maybe we need to let businesses take over our outside streets and shut the streets down so they can attract people like me and other people who feel, they believe in the science. Nobody wants to hurt anybody's family. Nobody wants to hurt anybody's business. I feel like those things are important to remember. And then as far as the threshold, I believe that, the doctor from UNI who spoke, she spoke about the 5% and about how the 5% was a number that they used. I think she said the Center of Disease Control for opening. To me, that's a logical thing. You listen to the people who know. We aren't scientists in the city council. We need to listen to experts and people who know the numbers and know what they mean. I know that we all feel like we're experts because of social media, but we're not. And as far as the concern for children, because I had another person ask, and maybe it was an email that went to all of us. I've worked in a business. Obviously, we've been essential the whole time. I've said before that what has made me feel safe at my job and coming home to my family is the fact that masks were required from the beginning. We have children come into the doctor's office. There's a certain age range, which I can't remember what it is, if it's 5 and under, that aren't required to wear it. But most parents grab the mask for their children. And we have little tiny 18-month-old babies that wear the mask and they don't play with it or complain about it or anything. Part of it, I feel like, is, in my family, my kids wear the mask and it's not even an option. We don't talk about it because I expect them to do it, and they do it. So I feel like sometimes it's what's the verbiage in your home that affects that. The main thing is, and I totally agree with Simon and anyone who said anything about education. And I agree with, if it's not enforceable, are we just wasting our time? But I feel like what we're doing isn't working, and we all want it to go away. We all want to go back to normal. We don't want our businesses and our economy to suffer anymore. For me, this is a health, public health crisis, and we need to treat it as such. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunn. Other comments from council? Okay, I'll note also, as you've been aware through council and some of the public, the information or the data that I track is the Harvard Global Health Institute's info, and there's nothing magical about it. It's the county's daily PCR positive totals, kind of normalized. It's per 100,000 residents, and then also it takes a 7-day rolling average, so it kind of evens out the highs and lows. And I like that figure because it's simple enough to be able to get my arms around. I know there's a lot more data like hospitalizations and other things that are also important, the positivity rates. But I find this is a good litmus test, a general litmus test to show generally what's happening. And I just want to show those figures. So here's the information for today. As we look at the counts, one of the public commenters said that the average has been 14. It's actually been quite a bit higher. So I'll show the chart here. This was back in May, when we had the Tyson outbreak and some of the big issues, and we slowed down. We moved back up in early June or July and began to slowly crawl down, but now we're creeping back up. And what that looks like from a number count is we were down, we were down to 13.6 for our Harvard count back on the 13th. Now we're up to 22. And we're looking at daily counts. It's not average of 14. If you look at the past week, it was 10, then 26, 28, 24, 49, 20, 24, 17, 42. So not to get into the mask side of it and whether masks are effective or they'll make a difference, I can just look at the numbers and say, our average caseload or of new daily cases is increasing. I'm not even going to project what could be the cause of that, but it's important for us to know, and that's why I felt this was a timely discussion. So I just wanted you to have those numbers and that kind of graphic available to you too of what we're looking at as our trends for now. So thank you for that.
Mayor Green.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I am not a medical expert, but I completely appreciate the medical experts. And again, I'm super in favor of masks and educating, and thank you for all you do. This is definitely, again, a difficult one. We're in the middle of a motion to amend for a recommendation. I can understand where the language plays an important role as well. That does make sense. So I still have a very tough time mandating something that's unenforceable, because with a seatbelt violation, with jaywalking, yeah, we don't really do that, but we have the ability to enforce it. if we had the ability to enforce a mask mandate, I would feel so much stronger about this. I just have a very hard time with enacting policy that's unenforceable. Becomes very difficult. It sets a precedent for your city that you're going to make things and then you can't do anything about it. I would recommend to council, possibly if they're up for it, instead of doing the recommendation, maybe we look at tabling this indefinitely and get more feedback and see how it goes, to see if this is something, because it's written well, it covers all the bases. I don't know that if we do it now, if it's just going to cause grief for everybody. So that would be my possible recommendation.
And where we're at right now is we have an amendment on the floor to change for the language from like an mandatory to a recommendation. Based on the earlier conversation with Mr. Rogers and some of the council members, Councilmember Cruz, would you be willing to withdraw at this point that motion?
Well, I was going to raise my finger and ask Mr. Rogers here if there's a way within parliamentary procedure or Robert's rules that we use to, as Simon said, table this and have you come back with different language, or like Susan said, we have yes, no, and then make a referral to come back, or how do we keep rolling along here and maybe a expeditious way to go towards the recommendation instead of a mandate? And Mr. Rogers, could you comment on that?
Sure. So we have to deal with the motion that's before council, and that's to amend. And so that could be withdrawn because there's been no vote. And then I believe what would default to then is the original motion to adopt the resolution as is. There could be a vote on that, depending upon how that comes out. And I think I know how that might come out after hearing the comments. Then after that, there could be a referral to staff to come back to you with language that would be more of a recommendation than a mandate. So you'd have an actual document to pass on, and there'll be no misunderstanding about what you have in mind. And so that might be the best way procedurally.
So Mr. Rogers, then you're saying we have to, I pull my amendment motion and then we go to yes, no, but could I re-amend or make another motion to table and then ask for language for recommending?
Here's the problem with that. If in our current posture, a motion to postpone indefinitely actually would be preferential motion to the motion to amend. So you could do that right now if there were a second and that passed. The problem with that is we'd pick up right where we are, and that is on the amendment. So I think it'd be better procedure to kind of wipe the board off, and then I'm getting a feeling of a consensus where you want to go with this, and you could direct staff to come back with something along those lines.
Right, and the other issue too with tabling as is, you can't then retool the resolution. You have to then bring it back up exactly as is.
True.
So it wouldn't really, as I'm understanding, it wouldn't meet the purposes that you're looking for, Councilman.
Okay, I follow along with that then. So I motion to remove my motion.
You can just withdraw. You can
just drop my motion.
Okay, it's withdrawn.
And then you say we need a referral to get new language. So can we do a referral now, or we just?
No, the referral is a separate new item. So this would be the up-down vote on the motion has already been presented, and then you can after that refer to staff to create the new language for our
all during this meeting here.
Okay, yes. Correct. Okay. Okay, so we're still under the same motion that we originally began with, and I don't have that in front of me. I've hidden that on my screen. So for City Clerk, could you please state what that motion was? Oh, you're muted right now, Ms. Danslin.
Sorry about that. We'll be back to what's on the agenda, which is the original motion adopting a face mask mandate for the city of Cedar Falls.
Okay, so that item has been motioned and seconded. Councilmember Miller, final comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering about if it doesn't make sense to table this. Like I said, I've been going back and forth on this all day. Say there's a massive outbreak that happens when school starts back up, and we see those numbers shoot through the roof. Does it not make some sense to leave this here? And so we have an opportunity to move if we see, I mean, this is a moving target. It's been changing since it started. So does it not make sense to leave this on the table and just so it's available if we have a massive outbreak?
Yeah, not to interrupt Councilman Miller, but I agree. I think tabling this as it is would leave an option for us. Tabling indefinitely, I think, would be the right way to do it, because if we tabled it, wouldn't it have to come back up at the next meeting or something? I guess Attorney Rogers could answer that.
Yeah, so I prefer you use the term to postpone indefinitely rather than tabling. Tabling has some connotation.
Okay. And if we do that or if the council does that as a group, then there still is the option, once this is frozen and postponed indefinitely, you can still refer to the staff to create a resolution that basically is identical to this, but isn't the mandate, it's the strong recommendation. So you still have that option as well.
And does that make it easier? Should we see something? Does it make it easier for us to respond should something catastrophic happen? More so than what's currently happening.
I don't know, the one allows us to act quicker than the other one.
Okay.
But at least you know what the one looks like, and you can move on to the other option, and you'd have them both in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
if
also-
it is, excuse me, if it is postponed, Mr. Rogers, then how does that come back to the council?
Just merely a request for it to be on the agenda, or mayor can put it on the agenda.
Okay.
And I'll just say politically too, then the council wouldn't have voted against this mandate. It simply would have postponed it, which is I know it's the wording, but I think it's important for decision that we didn't say no to it. Yes, Councilmember DeBerg.
Well, in all clarity, if we postpone it indefinitely, we really don't have the option to move forward with the strong recommendation, because we would still have this one on the table since it's been indefinitely postponed, wouldn't it?
Not if we didn't bring it up. We could move the if the council chooses, we could move the recommendation version ahead simply by taking it up at an earlier council meeting. That doesn't mean that the mandatory version is gone. It's still postponed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
or Mr. Rogers,
Cruz. Go ahead.
If you postpone indefinitely, at some point in the future, we have to unpostpone it or kill it completely. If that's or does it just float out there just forever and ever?
It could, but my preference would be, let's say, for instance, you decided to adopt the recommendation version. You may want to bring up the other one at the same time and vote it down.
Okay. After we decisively chose the recommendation.
But that wouldn't be mandatory. You wouldn't have to.
What? A little bit of semantics there.
Yes, Councilmember Sires, you had a statement or question?
Oh, I was just going to say I'm with Susan. If we vote this down, then can't the winning side, which would probably be no, bring that back up later? So it wouldn't be any different than tabling it. It would just get, as Mr. Rogers said, a clean slate, so you could start with your recommendation and all those kinds of things. Isn't that what I heard?
The prevailing side only has the next meeting to bring up that item. Yes, Councilmember Harding.
Well, if we postponed it for now, then we're not saying no to it. We're postponing it indefinitely. We see how it goes. And we don't necessarily need to bring back a resolution to recommend, because it's kind of already been told to us that the word recommend doesn't seem to help. It's not really, it's confusing the public. So I would say that if we're going to postpone this, let's just postpone it, and then let's not do a recommendation. Let's just postpone it and see how it goes. And if we need to bring this back in the next couple of weeks, we bring it back and revisit it as we watch the numbers closely.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Egbony, can you say for the county, you're working on stakeholder input for some action, correct? Could you explain what that is? Because that might help the council to understand.
So we're working, so the Board of Health is looking into doing what we would consider a face mask ordinance. And so I've been sending out communication to our stakeholders, those in the medical entity, the business community. I have, I have to reach out to Tyson and John Deere tomorrow, because I mean, it's so in just hearing the language behind postpone, you want to think about prevention. In the midst of a crisis, you want to think about prevention. And so, and that's why, again, even for the school population, the K through 12, we ask them to require face masks. I know it's going.
This question was in regards to the
health regulation. Yes. Right. So that is something that we will continue. We are getting stakeholder input, and the Board of Health will have a public hearing, hopefully scheduled. And so you are definitely welcome to join. We will send out that communication.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I could add.
And does this impact the county Board of Supervisors and their plans?
So once the Board of Health passes, or not, but I am pretty sure it's gonna pass, then it would go to the Board of Supervisors. Okay. And so, but yeah.
And is there any traction or an intent to have a county, potentially a countywide?
Yeah, so that's what we're looking to doing. We're seeing areas that university towns doing something similar, like Johnson County. Story County is also looking at something like that. So we're just trying to be preventative, and this is what we have. So we're not sure where the Board of Supervisors are, but we have been in conversations with our stakeholders.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear, so that if we do go to a postponement, that does provide additional options for resurfacing down the road, or perhaps it might be rendered moot if the county goes forward anyway. So just some extra information for the council. So any other questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Yes,
if we postpone this, what can we be doing differently right away that doesn't require a mandate? I really feel like, to me, this whole discussion has been about assuring our population that we're thinking about this, we're looking at solutions, we're looking at keeping them safe, and postponing something doesn't feel like we've done anything. And so are there some intermediate types of things that we can do to demonstrate to those people who spoke in favor of this tonight that we hear their concerns and that we're still wanting to keep them as safe as we can? What might we do in the interim?
And is that question directed to Dr. Egbony, Councilor Dara, or who?
Anybody. Yeah, that would be great if there are things that we the county can help us with, that we can implement without a mandate. That would be all the better.
Okay, I guess I should ask, is that meant as a rhetorical question for now, or?
Well, if there are answers, I'd love to hear them, but my point is I don't want to just leave tonight and have the resolution laying there with not having done anything different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's still an emergency there, whether people want to believe it or not, and we should be doing something about it. And so if there's intermediate steps that we could do better, I'd love to hear what they are.
Okay. And before moving to that, to clean up our procedure, we have a motion on the floor now to up or down vote this item. So it sounds like we're drawing into a discussion of postponement. So I would need to hear a motion and a second to postpone this item. If that's correct, Mr. Rogers? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion.
Okay, so it's motion by Councilmember Cruz and seconded.
Can Attorney Rogers explain the difference again, one more time, between tabling and indefinite postponement? Or
Tabling is a procedural move that speeds up the timetable a lot. So you can move to take it from the table during the same meeting or only the next meeting. If not brought from the table during the same meeting or the next meeting. And usually that the motion to table is something during the meeting, you need a little bit more information. You've got to get to another item on the agenda. So we're going to table that. We're going to come back to it. Generally, that's the purpose of that motion. But the danger for a motion to table that's sustained or passed is you've got that meeting and the next one. And if it's not brought back during the next meeting, it's gone. And so if you postpone a vote indefinitely, you have more time to consider, gather facts, and then bring it back on the agenda.
Okay, does that answer your question, Councilor DeBury?
yes, just 17 years, we've never done that before.
Can I ask a little refinement on that?
Yes, Councilmember Cruz, go ahead.
Mr. Rogers, then you say it basically expires or it's a turned down. Couldn't then the mayor or any council member just reintroduce the topic as a referral?
It could come back. However, it's my understanding that there's informal agreement among council that by practice that something like that goes down doesn't come back for 6 months.
Okay.
That's been a practice. It's not in the rules.
We haven't been dealing with COVID in those sorts of situations, so
Right.
I would be amenable. Other questions about this postponement or comments? Okay, so what's on the floor is a postponement of the original motion, and if there's no other comment or discussion for Mr. Rogers, my understanding is we could go to a vote on the postponement, and that basically ends the topic for tonight, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's been motioned and seconded to postpone the motion that's on the floor. Is this a roll call vote or a voice vote for a postponement, Mr. Rogers?
Voice vote.
Okay. So this requires a voice vote. And to be fair, I know we've used a certain order the last couple of days. Ms. Danielson, is it possible for us to change the order?
It is, but this wouldn't be a roll call.
Oh, right. Okay. So my apologies. And so it's been motioned and seconded, and this is a voice vote. So all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so in favor of postponement is 1, 2, 3, 4. And all in favor of, or excuse me,
that was 5 actually.
5? Okay, so I had
Sayers, Cruz.
Sayers, DeBuer, Mr. Cruz, and I see Mark Miller, and actually that's all 7, I believe. Oh, actually one.
Not Kelly.
6. Yes, so we have 6 voting aye, and then for nays, we have 1 nay. So that does pass to postpone this item indefinitely, and that would mean that this meeting is closed. So
We need a motion to adjourn.
yes,
Mr. Mayor,
I'll
could I
entertain.
make a comment yet, please?
No, the meeting doesn't allow it. Mr. Rogers, is that correct? We've voted on that item, and there's not a provision for closing comments.
No, it's within the discretion of the chair. If there's it's my recollection we were talking about a referral, but if someone were to make a motion like that, we'd hear it. But
okay,
not just general discussion is what you're correct.
Okay, so are there any additional items or motions that the council wishes to bring forward at this time? So seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
The motion seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.